There you go.
Thank you. I realized I was just muted.
No, you weren't.
Oh, I wasn't? Oh,
No.
okay.
Well, good morning, everybody. I think since we're recording, we can call this meeting to order, and I would ask Aaron to do a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. So Senator Zolnikoff, Alan Lloyd,
Here.
Senator Harvey, Senator Noland, Representative Etchart, Representative Seckinger, Representative Teal, Stacy Anderson, no, Tanner Avery.
Present.
Great. Webb Brown,
Here.
Bob Dean. I know he wasn't able to make it. John Harding, see in the attendees list. So, John, if you're listening, we're trying to promote you to a panelist, but we do see you logged on. Jennifer Hensley, Sierra Reesberg,
Here.
and Gail Tronstad.
Present.
Okay, that is it for subcommittee members. For staff today, I'm Erin Sullivan, lead staff for the task force, and we have Jennifer Stallkamp as our counsel for this subcommittee. And Kevin Bragg is also on the line. I don't think he wants questions today, so make sure you think of some good ones to ask him. And Jennifer and Kevin are helping out with the Zoom because Lisa is on a well-deserved vacation. So you got three of us today for your staff.
You almost outnumber us as committee members. So
It's summer.
with that, I would just start our agenda is to look at the recommendation for sunset review process. See, we have discussion, modifications, and a motion to approve. Aaron, did you want to share screen and walk us through that, and then we can take our action?
Yes, thank you. Let me find my share screen, and I want this one. Okay, so then somebody can confirm you can see the report.
Yes.
Okay, great. Um, So, based on everything that we've talked about in all of our meetings, this is the culmination. And so, I think the idea was always for there only to be one recommendation from the Sunset Committee, but for it to be a pretty comprehensive recommendation. And so, you'll see that this is very similar to other subcommittees that you're on as far as the format of the recommendation. So this is based on the survey. This is based on all of the data that was received. And can someone promote Stacy, please? Um, and then yes, and then we actually do have a draft to review as well. So you can see that this is what the recommendation is to introduce legislation establishing a mandatory scheduled review process. And so it should build on existing oversight. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We are just adding on to what's already kind of in place for a framework, which includes the Economic Affair Interim Committee's monitoring responsibilities for programs and boards right now, and then also for the Department of Labor and Industry. And then again, not reinventing the wheel, using the biennial board reporting obligations and adding on, but using this as the base for the data that should be presented to the interim committee. So again, then it goes on to say that it's a review and escalation model. And so it's not a hard termination, it's not a hard sunset. So absent action, the board is no longer in existence, but it is a present the information, and then from there, Economic Affairs decides if further action needs to be taken as far as a formal audit, as far as modifications or an actual termination or adjustment. So there's more information later on. And then it so it says existing licenses and boards will continue unless the legislature affirmatively changes the law. But new license types are subject to a shorter review cycle, so a 4-year review and sunset. Um, so we have some language to talk about that. And so then again, these are all of the different report elements that are being addressed by by this recommendation. So most of them, which is great. And then here's the recommended framework. So it goes into, say, a 10-year review cycle for existing boards, programs, and license types. And then says the schedule should be adopted in statute or by a process directed by statute, which is kind of what I did. So instead of saying Board of Accountants, you are up in 2035 or whatever, instead of having that be in statute, because that would need to be amended every single review cycle, which would be every other year whenever it starts. The legislation calls for the Economic Affairs Interim Committee to work with the department and adopt the review schedule in the first interim. So that would be next fall if this were to go through and pass. And then an automatic 4-year review and sunset for new license types. Again, there's some information on that. A standardized review packet. So that's kind of what we're calling it, is a review packet for the data that would be collected, saying that it's standard. So it doesn't matter which board or program it is, the same types of information, same questions will be asked. And DLI, in cooperation with the applicable board or program, will prepare this using existing biennial report data where possible, and then additional review data being specified by rule. And so those are the extra things that aren't currently being captured on that biennial report, but are important to this sunset review. Again, within the framework, Economic Affairs is the reviewing committee that's already established, and so it just makes the most sense under 55223 MCA. And then here are the different options. And so this is going back to that review and escalation. So after review, the committee can determine that everything is fine, great. We can continue supporting without any statutory change, or you know what, we need to change something. So then they can introduce a bill to change that. And then, or if the program, the board, the license type should be, if there's any kind of modifications that should be needed, a board consolidation, moving from a board to a program, anything like that. If there's something concerning that should rise to the level of a formal performance audit or financial audit, then refer it to Legislative Audit Division. Or if there's, something else that could be done outside of statutory changes, and a further study for emerging license types or something like that, or rulemaking. So those are all the different paths, I suppose, that the review could take. And then core review topics, the review should include public protection criteria that's similar to the existing statute in 28404, but should also examine board performance licensing burdens that were identified in the survey that we went through. So here's just some rationale as to kind of why this recommendation came to be, and it's just a little summary of everything that we've worked on over the last several months. And so then here's a proposed task force recommendation that I'm sure Alan will be the one saying in just a few weeks. Can you believe it? But that would be the motion for the final meeting if all of this looks good. So that's the recommendation. And then do you want me to go ahead and go through the draft as well?
Aaron, can I ask one question before we move on to the draft? I noticed in a few places we say board, license, or program.
Mm-hmm.
Do we as a group need to decide whether the review, at what level that our recommendation says that the review should take place, like whether it is the board level or at the license/program level?
I don't think so, because I think in the legislation it's fine. And so I think that, so obviously if, let's say next year they decide to start with Board of Medical Examiners. So that would be the entire board and every license that's underneath it. Same with a program. I'm trying to think if there's a program that has multiple license types. I'm sure there is. Oh yeah, private security, right? So private security program. So when that review comes up, every single license type would go in it. Where license would be kind of called out is for new licenses, I would think. And so I think I don't think you need to say I think it's assumed that it's on a license level.
Perfect. Thank you.
Did you want to go through the draft now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's see. Here it is. Okay, so here's the draft. Whoop, I'm sorry. So this is the draft, and so you can see the short title. So we're going to revise laws related to occupational licensing review. We're going to establish a periodic review for licensing boards, programs, and license types. We have a purpose, which is actually in the whereas clauses, and then we have some definitions, a process, and all of that kind of stuff. So you see that we're going to amend 4 sections. We're not. And I think we have 1 new section, so we'll get there when we get there. So I just kind of summarized everything that we talked about in these whereas clauses. And so most of you, I imagine, are quite familiar with the legislative process and what this does. These are the whereas clauses will not be put into the MCA. However, there will be a historical reference to it. And so this is very important when you're talking about legislative intent. And so I didn't think that we really needed to have this as a specific purpose section because there's already purpose sections in the existing statutes that we're amending. But I do feel that these are important to have as, it's a preamble for when if this bill were to go through and be presented to the legislature, then they'll really understand exactly why this is being proposed. So there's several of them, and so that's, hopefully you all had a chance to read through this. But basically, the intent is to integrate periodic occupational licensing review into the existing structures governing new board creation, interim committee review, economic affairs oversight, and biennial reporting. So again, like I just said, there already is a purpose built into these statutes. And so I have here that we are adding that the intent, so this is this red text is the new. So it's the intent to periodically review boards, programs, license types to determine whether it remains justified, effective, no more restrictive than necessary to protect public health, safety, welfare, common good, and then also require stronger justification for licensing requirements that more significantly restrict entry, practice, mobility, or competition. So that would be an amendment to the existing 2-8-401 and then the next section. So this is again already if a new board is created, this was put in. I think we went through it in our history lesson. I can't remember what year it was exactly, but it was put in recently in like the last 20 years. So basically, if there's a new bill draft request to create a new program, so the doulas are a good example. That was a new license type that was proposed last session. When the department was working with the doulas, we referenced this process and said that this is really kind of the research that you need to have prepared for your hearings. And so it says that there must report must be included with the bill draft request. And so I used this section because we already have kind of the framework. And so this would be a new board or licensing program. So that was just more of a technical update. A report, and then the 4-year sunset review is in here. And so under that, this is actually referencing the next section. And so a new license type, board, or program must be reviewed by the Economic Affairs Interim Committee in accordance with this review of licensing board section. So you'll see, just keep in mind the 2B. There's a lot more additions, amendments in this section because this is really kind of like the meat and potatoes of the interim committee review. And so you can see we've got licensing boards. Now we have programs and license types, a 10-year cycle, some criteria, and review packets, and committee action, right? So I've added a couple definitions to include all of the different iterations that we're talking about, what a board is, what a license type is, what a program is, what a review packet means, because this obviously is going to be new. And then it says that here's in section 2. So we've got the first level of review. So for an existing board program and license type, at least once every 10 years for boards, programs, and license types in effect prior to the effective date of the act. So whatever date that this bill would become effective, then that would be put in to there. And then within 4 years from the date of enactment for new boards, programs, and license types created on or after the effective date of the act. So whatever date, let's just pretend that it's May 1st is the effective date of the act, or July 1st or whatever, whenever it gets signed. Then that date would be put in there. So and then the interim committee shall, to the extent practicable, schedule similar or related boards. This is kind of what we had talked about as far as like how the schedule should look. And so it will be up to economic affairs to determine the schedule, but there's a little bit of guidance here, I guess, in determining what ones could be similar. So similar occupations or industry sectors, overlapping scopes of practice, shared education, training, examination, supervision, or CE, shared board administration or department support if there's common license recognition issues like compacts, or workforce issues, or any other factor that committee determines relevant. And then here's additional guidance. So before January 1st of each even numbered year, the committee responsible for the board monitoring, so that is economic affairs. It's not called out in this statute, but it is later on. Shall notify the department of what will be scheduled for review during the interim. And then the department will prepare a review packet and use information from the biennial report and include any additional information required by rule. And then the focus of the review is to address all of these were already in. So this is so right now, like we had talked about, board review is, what is the word? Oh my God, it's not mandatory. It's optional. Geez. But this is turning it to a mandatory review. And so these ones we're already in statute. We have a couple extras based on our conversations. And so they're looking at, is improper practice a threat to the public? Are there required skills that make the evaluation of competency difficult for the consumer? I probably need to. Sorry, I just saw that. I need to get rid of that little guy. And financial solvency, and then we're adding in whether the license type board or program is more restrictive than necessary, if more restrictive licensing requirements are supported by stronger justification, like for education, experience, examination, and all of those, whether the board, program, or license type is operating efficiently and effectively, if the licensing requirements affect workforce availability, interstate mobility, access, and all of those. Whether complaint, investigation, discipline, and ethics related information indicates issues requiring further review. If the Practice Act contains outdated, duplicative, inconsistent, so this is kind of going through the barriers or the outdated good moral character, whatever it is, and then whether continuation, modification, consolidation, or further review is appropriate. So this black text starting on line 7, this was already in here. And so this is what the standard review process is now, that the committee can draft legislation to repeal the board or program if it's no longer needed, combine it if it meets the criteria in subsection 2A, but also has one of these following criteria. So higher fees, fewer than 200 licensees, limited complaints. So that's just a standard board consolidation guidance. Then here's all the other ones that I added in based on what I just talked about in the recommendations. So modify, continue, repeal, sunset, terminate, however you want to call it. Changes to statute or rule, audit review, additional information, or any other recommendation within their authority, which is pretty much everything. And then this, I think, was just moved from higher up. that's saying that a review under this section it's not the same as a performance audit, and nothing in this section limits the authority of what the audit division can do now in the Legislative Audit Committee. So that's just kind of a, I think it's expanded a little bit in there. And then here's some rules. So department shall adopt rules to implement the review packet requirements. We did want to add in here that prior to the publication of the notice, the department will provide the interim committee a reasonable opportunity to review and comment on the proposed rules. And so it's a group effort. But rules may include standardized forms, additional information, procedures for collecting stakeholder comments, methods for using existing biennial report data, procedures for reporting information by board, and any other procedure necessary. So it's a lot of options for the rulemaking. I am not on that side of the legal division, and so I'm glad that I'm not the one that has to write these rules. And then the department shall present the review packet to the interim committee, and then the board or program can provide a written response. They can appear before the committee and, make their case, basically. This is a new section. So this talks about establishing the initial review schedule. So saying before September 1st of 2027. And so hopefully if we can get this passed and off and running, then then in the next interim, so the 27-28 interim, the Economic Affairs Committee can get started on this process. So then we're not waiting an additional 2 years. And so you'll see down here, I have an earlier effective date than our standard effective dates for a bill like this would normally be October 1st. But because we kind of want to get things going ahead of time, I'm proposing an earlier effective date. So Economic Affairs Committee, in consultation with DLI, will adopt a 10-year review schedule. And then the schedule must provide for each board program license type to be reviewed at least once during the 10-year period, and then group similar boards. So this kind of just reiterates what was said above. Account for committee workload and department capacity, identify the boards and programs, consider. This was something that I think I suggested because we have a lot of practice acts that are going through review and modernization right now or have in the recent past. And so if it's something that's going through, like plumbing is going through, hopefully we'll have a bill draft for the plumbers, Board of Plumbers next session. So probably don't need to do theirs right away. And so that's what this sub F means. And then tying into the 4-year review, so the committee in consultation with the department must adjust the schedule to include the 4-year review for a new board, program, or license type in accordance with the subsections above. And then here is the statute that relates directly to economic affairs that kind of talks about all of the different agencies that the interim committee has review authority over. And so I added in licensing review just to kind of help. And then there is just one subsection. Economic Affairs Committee is the reviewing interim committee for this new process, unless another interim committee is designated by law, which, that's just kind of a safety thing to put in there. And then just a couple changes to the biennial report for use and licensing review, added on and program. You'll see that all along here because right now the statute only calls for licensing boards to be included in this biennial report, but we have lots of programs and they will be part of the sunset review as well. And then just added on a couple things. So obviously this will be all of this is already required, and then this would be any information necessary to the extent that they are scheduled for review during that biennium. And so all of whatever goes into rule about all the extra things outside the report is not going to be required for every single board and program, except that when it is their turn, when it's their turn for the biennium for that biennial report, that information will be included. And then the department can use the information prepared under this section to satisfy all or part of the review packet required under 28404. This is just a standard codification section for that one new section to include it into 8 Part 4. It makes the most sense to just put it in there. And then I do have an effective date of July 1st, 2027. If this goes through and we get to the session, we can always talk about if that should be an immediate effective date. That makes it kind of hard when you have to do rulemaking. And stuff like that. But at a minimum, July 1st instead of October 1st, and that way the Economic Affairs can incorporate this into their this earliest possible interim allowed. And then just an applicability section that just talks about what this act applies to. So it's obviously all of the boards, programs, and license types attached to DLI on or after the effective date of the act. And then it goes on just to say, and this section will not get codified either. So applicability sections are instructions. They aren't codified. And so the 10-year review cycle applies to whoever is in existence before July 1, and then 4-year is whoever's in existence after July 1. So that is the bill. And I noticed a couple typos and errors and stuff, so I'll go through and clean all that up. But the language is what I would like the committee to discuss and provide any feedback if necessary.
With that, I would just open up for committee members. If anybody has any comments or changes for Aaron.
Right.
That's a lot of work. Thanks, Erin.
Oh, thank you.
Agreed. Gail. And Gail, you are muted.
I'm just curious about rules that are, I think they're developed by the department. Do those have to be posted for public input? And if so, in a case like this, it's real broad for all licensing, who would be notified of that?
Jen can probably take that one.
I can. Thank you, Gail. Great question. Jennifer Stallkamp for the record. So yes, if the department is undertaking rulemaking, Gail, they are subject to the same rulemaking requirements that you would be familiar with from the Board of Pharmacy. There is a notice and comment period. People are invited to submit public comments. And I believe I will not put Mr. Bragg on the spot, but I believe if we're doing a department-wide rulemaking that would affect all of the licensing boards and programs, we would send that to the interested parties for all of those boards and programs. So there's not a separate department rulemaking interested parties list. If it affects all of the boards, we send it to all of the boards.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would just comment that there was recently one of those, and that's how it worked. So, because I remember seeing it in the past couple of weeks.
Thank you. I'm glad to know I was right.
And hopefully, sorry to butt in, but hopefully, I don't know how the interested parties list works, but I know that there is a task force one. And so everybody who, the Gov deliveries that we send out weekly announcing the agendas and stuff, that maybe that could be included as well with something like this. And so if you aren't subscribed to a specific board, but you have been following along the task force in general, perhaps that can be included. Especially for this type of bill or rulemaking.
Webb.
Thank you, Chair Lloyd. Aaron, can you go back to the draft motion, please?
Okay.
And yes, thank you for bumping it up a little bit there.
You can do even more if you guys want. Is that better?
That's better, yeah. Chair Lloyd, Webb Brown, Montana Dental Association. I would move the Loose Licensing Reform Task Force to recommend that the legislature enact a structured occupational licensing review process that requires existing licensing boards, programs, and license types administered by or administratively attached to the Department of Labor and Industry to be reviewed on a 10-year cycle with similar boards, programs, license types grouped together when practicable, excuse me, and further recommend that all newly created license types be subject to a 4-year review and automatic sunset unless continued by the legislature. The review process should require the department and affected boards to prepare standardized review packets using existing biennial report data where possible, supplemented by data specified by rule. The Economic Affairs Interim Committee should serve as the review committee, and after public review should determine whether the review is adequate for continuation, whether statutory changes are needed, or whether the matter should be escalated to the Legislative Audit Division or Legislative Audit Committee for audit consideration. Mr. Chair.
We have a motion. I would ask if there is a second.
This is Gail Tronstead. I will second that motion.
Fantastic. And with that, any further discussion? Hearing no, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, I believe we just passed that unanimously.
Wonderful.
And I would express my appreciation for Mr. Brown reading the recommendation for us.
That was a beautiful motion.
Yeah, I had great help doing that, but it's good to get it on the record, on the recording. Thank you, Aaron, for all the work. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you. So with that, Mr. Chair, again, I noted a couple technical errors that I did when I was drafting this bill, so I'll fix those. But then this document that is on the screen and the bill will be part of will be your packet, basically. The other item is the final report, which I guess we can maybe talk through if you all think that should be part of the August 21st meeting, or if that's just part of the final report. So
I would open to other thoughts, but I read that document this morning and I feel it is an accurate representation of the work that we did. I do not know that it needs to be included for our final meeting.
okay. So if nobody has any, I mean, it was great that you passed the recommendation and there weren't any changes, because that means that I don't have to make any changes to this subcommittee report. But I will. We're gonna get started piecing together the final report soon, and so that's one reason why I wanted to get this out, because it will be reformatted. I'm sure it won't look like how my stuff looks, but if the content is good with everybody and I captured the whole subcommittee's work correctly, then I can go ahead and move forward with using this as our summary for the subcommittee.
Any objections from anybody? Gail?
This is Gail Tronstead. I support that, and I thought it was very thorough and just an excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. Maybe. Well, Mr. Chair, if nobody has anything on that report, that was kind of that agenda item.
And that, if I'm reading the agenda correctly, that would take us to next meeting. The full task force is meeting on Friday, August 21st in Butte, America. We'll find out a time here at some points, but looking forward to that. Aaron, I'll just check. Are we good to go to public comment?
Yes, before that, just a couple things on the final meeting. So I will hopefully have an agenda out for everybody in the next couple weeks. It'll be similar to the afternoon session that we had in Billings. We're not going to do a morning session focused on a certain industry or anything like that. So there will, I think, I'm hoping that we'll start around 10:30. So mid-morning. So if you want to drive down that morning, if you are within a couple hours, that's great. If you're further away, then I did provide some room blocks. So a couple different hotels, I think. One of them is only good through today, and then the other one is only good through like early next week. So if you do need a room and you haven't made your reservations yet, please do so, so you can get the contracted rate. And if you need those, an email again, if you need me to re-forward it to you, then let me know today, and so I can get that out because I know that one of them is only good through the end of July, which is today. So hoping to finish up with that meeting around well, whenever it's done. But I'm only planning the subcommittee reports, and then we will have a report on the survey that's going out. I don't have any more information on that, and so I think that's more kind of a surprise for everybody. And but yes, and it'll be at Montana Tech, and it's in the University Relations Center, so it's not the Student Union building. And I will say that that is orientation week for tech, and so which is why we're not in the sub, but we'll be in. It's a very nice building. I've seen it, and I can't remember who it's named after, but it's called the University Relations Building, and there'll be parking nearby, and we'll have lunch brought in and all of that kind of stuff. So that's that. And again, if anybody has any questions on that meeting, feel free to give me a call. If you cannot make the meeting, because I know that there was some concern about that, and you want to provide, you want your feedback or anything you want to say, but you can't be there, you can certainly send me that information, and so we can relay that to the whole task force. But hopefully you all can make it. And if you absolutely can't make it in person, but you can participate on Zoom, I would encourage you to do so for that as well.
As someone who hosts a meeting in that building once a year, I will encourage everybody to look at the map. That area of campus can get a little confusing. So with that, are we ready for public comment?
Yes.
All right. The subcommittee now offers the public in attendance an opportunity to comment on any public matter under the jurisdiction of the subcommittee that is not on the current agenda. The subcommittee cannot act, but will listen to comments and may ask staff to place the issue on a future agenda. The chair may limit the comment period to proceed with this subcommittee meeting. Public commenters should state their first and last names when offering comments.
Mr. Chair, I see no one with their hand raised.
Outstanding.
Oh, nope.
Oh.
Patty Steinmuller. So I'm going to promote her to talk here. You can unmute and talk. Go ahead.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Patty Steinmuller. I'm a licensed dietitian in Montana. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed review process. I generally support reviewing license laws to encourage that they remain necessary, effective, appropriately tailored for health professionals. However, I encourage the subcommittee to recognize that repeated reviews can add additional burdens to the licensing boards and practitioners when licensing is tied to public protection, federal or payer requirements, or participation in an interstate comment. The dietitian license compact, for example, depends on participating states maintaining qualified system of professional licensure. Montana must maintain licensure for dietitians to participate in the compact and provide Montana licensees with the mobility and streamlined multi-state practice that the compact is intended to offer. Eliminating or materially weakening licensure could jeopardize those benefits of the compact. Periodic review can be valuable, but it shouldn't be create unnecessary administrative burdens or inadvertently undermine Montana's participation in various interstate compacts that improve professional mobility and access to health care. Thank you for considering this and for developing that recommendation and the bill that does consider the information from compacts.
Patty, thank you very much for your comments. We will take them to heart and appreciate you taking the time to make them today.
I see no other hands, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, everybody. I appreciate all of your time as well as we've progressed through this adventure, and look forward to seeing everybody in Butte.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
everyone. All right.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.